Hi Simon, lovely to meet up with you again the other day and start doing some work on your game. Just a quick recap on the key points that we covered. Obviously during your session we discussed a lot of different things that arose through the changes that we were putting in there. The key issues we had were initially the structure of the setup. Wasn't really doing you any favours. You can see here that we've got the right foot very square. That's kinking the right knee inwards and restricting your ability to turn your hips. So the first thing that we wanted to do was flare both feet out approximately 15 to 20 degrees. You cannot overdo this at this stage. The repositioning of the feet relocates the knees, and the relocation of the knees frees up the hip sockets to turn during the backswing. It's essential that the hips turn. If the hips do not turn and the trail leg does not extend, then the body has a limited, if you will, the shoulders have a limited capacity to turn also. So if you want to get your shoulders to travel through 90 degrees, and the shoulders by themselves or the torso by itself will only turn independently by say 40 degrees at max, then you have to have 50 degrees of hip turn to get that 90 degree travel on the shoulders. And what we see at the start of your session is we relate it to the head in the box. We see quite a substantial move off our original starting point, and a lot of that is because we're maintaining our forward bend. There's no extension in the spine, and the left shoulder doesn't work down sufficiently. With the repositioning of the feet and the request of trying to make as much hip turn as we can during the backswing, we start to see that the head is more stable. We still move off the golf ball, but we don't move off as much. The action of the hips is much freer. The linkage between the knees is working much better. The hips are turning on a tilted angle much more, which is improving your ability to get the shoulders to turn beyond 90 degrees as opposed to the sort of 72 or 75 degrees that we saw at the start of your session. So it's all about getting the body to work in a more efficient manner, which will then result in improving your ability to keep the arms on the rib cage. You can see here early in the swing, you can see here that there's very little movement in the shoulders. Stop that swing there, I beg your pardon. Whereas on this swing, with the feet flared differently and the hips turning more, the shoulders have already started to turn a little bit earlier. When the body's got a limited capacity to turn, the arms will lift off the rib cage as you complete your backswing, resulting in quite a large gap here between the arms and the torso. So on this one, we've got the glove beneath the arm, and we're trying to propel the butt of the club as far as we can. That's encouraging further expansion in the spine, keeping the arms on the ribcage. So the club now is travelling as far as before, but the arms are staying on the ribcage. Now the most chaotic way to swing a golf club is to move the weight from side to side, lift the arms off the ribcage, and then try and release the club on the way through, and we'll come to that shortly. So you're doing all three, which is why the game's taken a little turn for the worst, if you will. We can see from down the line on this one, is at the start of your session, arms lifting well off the rib cage, very little movement in the lower body. This more towards the end of your session, arms are starting to stay more on the rib cage. That one was a little bit longer. We took all the restraints away at that point. I like it just a little bit shorter there would be ideal, but you're already starting to see the difference in the way the body's working. If you look at the knees, you're starting to see a gap between the knees, the hips are turning, the trail legs straightening, and the lead legs flexing. Now that's all as a result of you repositioning the feet and trying to turn the hips more during the backswing. When we get halfway back during the backswing, if we look at it from face on again, when we get to the position where the left arm is parallel, we now have two options. We can continue to work the body properly, or we can lift the arms. Now at the start of the session, you completed the backswing by lifting the arms. There's very little going on with the body from left arm parallel to the top. Towards the end of your session, from midway back, the body continues to work as the arms swing, so the arms stay on the rib cage throughout the backswing. Now on the through swing, I'm just going to get rid of these swings here for now. And get these two guys up alongside one another. In the through swing at the start of your session, this on the right, by the way, still needs to be more centered. I'm going to take you back to your practice swing shortly. At the start of your session, the emphasis was on releasing the golf club. And we discussed the sort of the negatives of that, if you will, and the fact that good players don't demonstrate that through impact. So everything is folding and releasing. There's a lot of angle in the ankles, the knees, the pelvis, the arms are collapsing, and the wrists are certainly flexing and extending a lot. Towards the end of your session, the goal was to try and keep the arms straighter through the hip. And the act of keeping the arms straighter is starting to straighten out the arms, obviously. It's encouraging the body to work differently. The lower body certainly is working differently. And if we'll just take you back to impact. Things are looking a lot more dynamic. Hips have moved forward more. Legs are working differently. Tilts in the shoulders better. And there's certainly, as we come through the ball, not the same tendency to fold and collapse and release. You see the rate at which that club is overtaking hands is far higher on the left than it is on the right. Much better action on the right. So the goal is to keep the arms straighter, reducing the amount of release. Going back to your backswing, in the build up to this swing you made some great demonstrations. So from that setup, got to keep the arms on the rib cage. We've got to turn the body, allow the hips to turn. And if you can compare that to where you were at the start of your session, at the top of your backswing, it's a completely different animal, particularly in regards to this forward bend being maintained. So here we've extended the spine, and here we've maintained the forward bend a little bit too much. The reason you've extended your spine is the act of propelling the club as far as you can without lifting the arms off the rib cage has started to encourage a completely different move in the body. I think you'd agree that the one on the left is looking a lot more natural, a lot more dynamic, and a lot easier to repeat under pressure. Good luck with it. If you have any questions, feel free to drop me a line. You've got my email address, obviously. I've fired some emails across to you, and I look forward to working with you again in a couple of weeks' time. Well done.